Good morning, brothers and sisters of Accounting 201. This is Brother Lewis coming to you at the beginning of week 7. Let's start off with spiritual thought, and then we'll work through the rest. We are working through studying Second Nephi 3 through 5. We lived after the manner of happiness. Kind of a strange little thing, manner of happiness. When you consider Nephi and all the struggles that he went through, his family, getting to, even getting to the promised land. And then after that, basically being, his father died. His brothers wanted to kill him and they have to leave and figure things out. So I don't know if that's happiness or not, but obviously that is a manner of happiness. The reality is that challenges face us all the time, regardless of where we are. We're no different than Christ. He had challenges throughout life, but he lived a life full of happiness. So how does that work? And as I was looking through this, I was thinking to myself, I'm back to how do I get past my complacency issue? And this chapter talks about, looking at maybe, where Nephi, says, right, feels wretched and easily beset by temptations, right? So even though he was great, strong, and all that jazz, he still had his own issues. I can only imagine, crossing the sea, bound by his brothers, not able to do anything, and being just tossed about for who knows how long, actually. Clearly his wrists were struggling. They were probably red and torn and somewhat due to all the thrashing about. And so that's not exactly happiness in my mind, but clearly through that, they reached some level of happiness. And in, I guess, chapter 5, one thing that I caught hold of, he's been taught how to do a bunch of stuff already. He was taught how to go find food when his boat broke. He was taught how to build a vessel, which required all sorts of different skills. I'm sure not only that of creating steel out of iron or some form of metallurgy, how to create planks and ribs for a boat, and who knows how they made that boat, but that's no small feat. What else has he been learning how to do? Oh, make weapons, swords, and things of that nature. These are not easy to come by skills. They take practice. They take a lot of insight, understanding. And so he's at a point now, I guess, where he can do the same. He can teach others what's going on. And so maybe that's a part of, living happily, is that once we get to a point where I'm not sure if it's really self-reliant, but it's more like capable of doing things, we can start to share with others how to do things. And this is interesting to me. And I did teach my people to build buildings, to work in all manner of wood and of iron, copper and of brass and of steel and of gold and of silver and of precious ore, which were in great abundance. I've seen some things about, what would you call them? Oh shoot, I can't even think of the name. Mining efforts by the early ancient Americans, or in the Great Lakes area. There are all sorts of copper and silver mines up there. And they're really not mines as we think of them, but they're just holes in the ground dug deep, not into necessarily caves or mountains, but dug deep into the land. And I wonder, if this was them. There was abundance of all this stuff in that area. And so certainly being able to work with the materials on the land and then creating those to build a temple, very similar to the Temple of Solomon, with all sorts of precious things. And the manner of construction was likened to the Temple of Solomon, and the workmanship thereof was exceedingly fine. So, they put their efforts towards building something that they could consecrate their time towards, that could help them in their worship of their God or of our God. And while we do that in some ways where we consecrate our tithing to the church, church then builds temples, temples which we are able to attend and perform ordinances for ourselves as well as for the dead. But we can also build temples, as President Nelson has mentioned, within our own homes. And isn't that just as important? And something that we could focus on as a matter of happiness, to build peace, harmony, strength in our very homes. And so that was kind of at least ran through my head as I was reading through that. And then just making sure that, it caused my people to be industrious, to labor with their hands. And sometimes I think that's hard. We want things just to happen. We wake up in the morning, food's on the table, we carry out our day, we're entertained, we go to bed, and it's nice, warm, and cozy. But that doesn't happen by happenstance. We have to be engaged in our own self reliance, our own self-fulfillment, our own self-happiness. We have to actually do something in order to achieve that. It reminds me, I was at a retreat, a leadership retreat, actually last night, and there was a gentleman talking about freedom, and he was referencing that back to like slavery. He was a Black man who has come from a large history of leadership within that Black community. He said there's an interesting dilemma that happened to them personally, is that when they were slaves, they had no freedom, they had no ability to actually choose for themselves what to do. And so the law, if you will, for them was very restrictive and very much something that, regardless of what they did, well, they didn't have any freedom to do anything. Therefore, their consequences, their accountability was very, very minimal. However, once they were no longer slaves, they had immense freedom and therefore immense accountability. And so that has played out in their own culture much differently. Some have become, very capable and very good at what they do. And the freedom has resulted in something very positive for them. Whereas others, freedom did not turn out to be very positive for them. In fact, it turned out to be much more of a slavery type of a condition, but worse because of all that freedom. Now they had accountability, and now they had to bear the consequences of that freedom, of their choices. And we are very much the same thing. We can choose. God has given us the freedom to choose happiness or not. And when we choose principles or actions that are founded in happiness, we will achieve happiness. But when we choose to act along principles of bondage, we will put ourselves in bondage. And so I think that comes back to this point, right? Be industrious, labor with your hands, do good things. And when you do that, you will live a manner of happiness. So I'll leave it with that. I know I've gone probably too long on this anyway, but we can apply that even to our work in studying accounting, right? If we just want things to come to us, it's not. We're going to have to work for it. And I've worked for it. You're working through it right now. And as you get through some of these concepts, you'll start to see how the rest of it just starts to unfold. It starts to become easy. But it really takes a lot of effort, a lot of hard work to get through those initial concepts of what are the principles, how do I apply them, and how do I apply them in different scenarios. And so I hope you find that a little bit helpful this week. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. So let's go over to the modules. So really this upcoming week 7 is pretty quick. You have, in terms of study, because then you have another exam. It's exam 2 is coming up at the end of week 7. You have one more chapter to study, chapter 6, which is all about internal controls, really, right? Fraud and internal controls, control of cash, which really comes down to the control of assets. And that's a vital aspect of every business. But cash being a big one, which really involves doing bank reconciliations in the bottom line. One, how do you control the access to cash and the use of cash? But then also, how do you then go back and reconcile what's happened and make sure that you know exactly what's come in and what's come out? So bank reconciliations is a big problem for some people because it's tedious. It requires some level of logic and understanding. And so next 3 days are going to be kind of challenging. It looks like a very short chapter, only 3 days to do this, 4 or 5 if you include today. But you know, you really have some principle-based information followed by some really practical things. And when I was a controller for some of the companies, I mean, bank reconciliations were both a very important thing to do on a regular basis, but also very tricky sometimes because just because you recorded it on the books doesn't necessarily mean it hit the bank account. And just because it hit the bank account doesn't mean it always hit the books. And so you're always in this constant flux of trying to make sure you're tied up, that you know what's going on both sides. Okay, that said, just as a little preface, I think you guys are finally starting to get the hang of this, but in the YouTube playlist, right, for week 7, you're going to find, if I go to week 7, on these videos, you're going to find that you're going to have a few problems that I've worked through to help you out with that, right? So there's a financial statement 6 and 3 that I've done. That should help you out quite a bit on that component. And then you have a couple of exercises. And these I probably could rename a little bit better. I'll double check those. But if you run into problems, these are definitely going to help you out, right? Yeah, quiz access problem 12. So I have about 4 of the quiz access problems ready to go. And then I also have a chapter 7 overview, some additional support. So hopefully those will help out quite a bit. Let's go back here. Okay, so really that gets you through chapter 6. And then exam 2 is going to cover really, I think it's just chapter 3 and chapter 6. So the nice thing is it's just 2 chapters, right? Not like 4 chapters on the first one. It's just 2, but they're heavily principle based, right? So well, adjusting for revenues and expenses, accruing, deferring revenues and expenses. Those are big topics. Those are things you're really going to need to get under your belt before you get into the rest of the material. And then you have the internal controls and the bank reconciliations. Those are really the 2 major aspects of this exam, and it's 50 questions, right? So if you don't remember, see, I think in the announcements, this is section 3, so it may look a little different, but back in, I think it was week 4, preface, you should see the exam review McGraw-Hill file. That is exactly the same as this week's. I mean, that one shows exam 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can just look at exam 2 and see what you need to prep for there. And amazingly, if you understand those questions pretty well, you'll do really well on the exam. All right. But that's really the 2 things you got to focus on: working through chapter 6 and then getting prepped for the exam. Remember, exam is on Saturday. I think that's February 24th, right? Saturday. So make sure you get it done beforehand if you can. And don't wait till the very last minute to do that. That's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, give me a holler. I have office hours on Thursday, so I should be able to help you prep if you want to. Thursday at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. I'll be on, I think I'll be on. Actually, I'll be in Hawaii on Thursday. I should be on 7 o'clock Mountain Time is, I think, like 3 o'clock afternoon in Hawaii. I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, but I'm really not on vacation when it comes to school because I'm always here to help out. So yeah, but I will be 4 hours, I think, or 3 or 4 hours ahead of where I'm at now. But that's all good. I'll make sure I'm on office hours. So that's good. And then I'm also available as needed to help through any of the questions you have. But don't forget to use the support forum. I see several students, like even with this week, working through that. In this section, a lot of good like interaction and discussion. So very nice. Keep on supporting each other as you go through things. And then if you do have, you need help from me, make sure that when you're asking for help, it's always nice to see the work that you've done so that I can understand where you're missing some pieces. And what's the other thing? Yeah, just make sure it's clear about what you're struggling with, because sometimes it's not so clear when you just say, I need help with, I don't know, debt ratio or something like that. And I don't know what problems is related to. I don't know the background information that you're struggling with. I don't know the calculations that you've done. And so I have no idea really how to help you. And so I'm just going to ask questions until I understand that, and then I'll help you. So it's usually easier for you to give me as much information as you can beforehand so that I can actually help more efficiently. Otherwise, that's it. Have a great week. Take care.